Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Fatboyz Dynasty podcast. And as this season wraps up and is coming to a close, I know some people have Week 18's playoffs chasing, which we will be live this Sunday to help you out, any of you guys that are in Week 18. As for Week 17, it did end with an unfortunate event on Monday Night Football. Our prayers go out to Hamlin and his family. We hope for the best. We hope for a good recovery. And I know that a lot of people are trying to figure out what to do with the league as the game is postponed / canceled. We're not even 100% sure what's going on. I do want to address a few things that we did with our league. For the payouts and everything in our dynasty league. In my family league, I put it up to a vote. That's just my redraft league. We put it up to the vote for the top four real fast because no one was really close, but everyone had some type of players. Instantly, everybody came out. The first and second said split it. Third goes, I had no shot in the world, and I knew Josh Allen would get 2 more points. So give the man his third place money. He knew he had no shot in the world. And as for our dynasty league, I think it was Tuesday, we reached out to all 4 teams involved and instantly just started talking about it, how we wanted to handle it. And in the championship game, it was myself and Jason, and we were 4 to 6 points separated before the start of the game. And I had Burrow and Mixon, he had Allen and Chase, and we decided we're just going to split the pot, and we'll do something fun to figure out the trophy if it comes down to the game officially being canceled. As for third place, you handled that one a little more than me, Bo. How did third place get handled? I know I was a little out of the loop because I was kind of a man in question and didn't want to be biased.
Yeah, so Brant and I do co-commission the league that is in question here, but I was the one who kind of went out and instigated and did the talking and chasing around it to get people to see what they wanted to do. And obviously, again, just to reiterate again, our thoughts and prayers are with Hamlin and his family and all the players that were involved, whether it be the Bengals players or the Bills players. First and foremost, that comes way before regular football and way before fantasy football for that purposes as well. But again, for us, heavier set guys that are unathletic at this point in our lives who are sitting couch living through what's going on those TV screens on Sundays, Mondays, and Thursdays, and occasionally Saturdays. Sometimes it does feel like life, right? So that third place game was very similar to what you said in your family league. One player was down like 2 points, had a whole game left to step on Diggs, basically. So the other guy said, hey, he was going to beat me. It is what it is. Go ahead and pay him. And it was real simple. But again, Brant, you can't make everybody happy. You're always going to have one person or 2 people in your league that complain and question every decision that's made. But as long as you're batting 90 to 80% with the rest of your league and those people are wanting to come back and play in leagues that you're running, you're probably doing, just a fair enough job. So I know, people like Scott Fish who runs the Scott Fish Bowl, which is one of the biggest fantasy football leagues out there. He was all over Twitter kind of saying the same thing. As a commissioner, you got to be proactive and get ahead of the thing. At this late in the season, it'd be really hard, I think, for the league to fit this makeup game in general anyway. So I definitely will be interested to see how the game gets made up. But in our league that you and I co-commissioned, we took the proactive route and kind of, sought out everybody and wanted to make sure where everybody's head was. And like you said, first, the 2 teams going for first and second, you and Jason both agreed to go ahead and split. And I'm going to come up with something fun that's of equal opportunity for both of you guys to try to hoist the trophy. So to be determined on what that is. But, again, fantasy football is second in this instant. Hamlin and his family and everybody else come first at that point. But I know a lot of us still were left to pick up the pieces and figure out what we were doing with our leagues and things of that nature. So that's just one example of what we did. So.
Yeah, it definitely was a hard decision to come to for fantasy. Luckily, everyone was kind of involved, and everyone that was involved definitely put their best foot forward there, knowing that it is just fantasy, that something bigger is going on, something bigger had happened. So we're getting back into our podcast. I know it's been out of the last couple weeks with the holidays and everything else. We've made sure to get on our live. We've been battling some time crunch issues with us and our families and everybody else coming around for the holidays. But we're back at it. We're going to be pumping out at least one episode a week for you guys to get you ready for your dynasty leagues. So we're getting back into dynasty.
And you hit the key word on it right there too, Brant. We are a dynasty podcasting group Monday through Friday, and then our live on Saturday, Sunday is kind of a mixing pot, a melting pot of all of it, if you will. But we will be focusing mainly on dynasty for the better part of the off season. Closer to season, we'll probably do some redraft rankings and some redraft mock drafts as well. But most of the off season is going to be spent on talking about a lot of these incoming rookies and things of that nature. So
yeah. Absolutely. So let's hit a little 2022, 2023 recap here. We're going to go over the top 15 at each position real fast. And we're going to talk about a guy that surprised us to be in the top 15. We're going to talk about a guy that's sitting on the outside looking in, and we expect that should get back into the top 15 or to see the top 15 for the first time. So I'm just going to jump it right into this, and we're going to talk about the quarterbacks. Your obvious top three: Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts. Then you had Joe Burrow, Justin Fields, Geno Smith, Daniel Jones, Trevor Lawrence, Kirk Cousins, Jared Goff, Tom Brady, Justin Herbert, Lamar Jackson, Aaron Rodgers creeped himself back into there, and Tua. All were your top 15 quarterbacks in PPR leagues. So you go ahead. What do you got, Bo? Who surprised you, and who do you think will make it back in there?
Yeah, so the biggest surprise for me is actually Justin Fields, and a lot of the reason why it surprised me is because I don't think a lot of people were expecting him to do that, be a top 5 quarterback in PPR leagues going into the season. He was probably not drafted there. I don't remember where we had him in preseason rankings, but it was not a 5. I can assure you of that. And the reason it's so crazy to me is because this year he threw 17 touchdowns and 11 interceptions and only threw for 2,200 yards. So it wasn't his air ability that made him into a top 15 quarterback. It was absolutely his running ability, where he finished. Or at this point, through week 17, he's not playing week 18. So excuse me, his numbers are going to be final here. But 1,143 total yards on the ground to go along with 8 touchdowns. So Justin Fields may start to creep into that Lamar Jackson-esque level of quarterback moving forward. Definitely a guy that I think next year you're going to see him be drafted, more appropriately probably now, knowing what he can do. But if I'm looking at this list and I pick a guy out that I don't think repeats in this list, it's Tom Brady, who's sitting at 11 for me. And I know, it's almost irresponsible for a fantasy podcaster, if you will, to speak out against Tom Brady. But those of us who watched Tom Brady play and witnessed any Buccaneers games this year, he just doesn't look the same. The arm's not what it once was. I know this week he dialed it back a little bit with the 3 touchdowns to Mike Evans. But I was just, honestly, I was shocked to see his name that high. But I don't think he comes back and does that again next year.
Okay. The guy that surprised me is a guy I put a little emphasis on his name when we ran through him, and that's Geno Smith. I will be the first person to tell you I did not expect the Seahawks to have this decent of a year. Especially I didn't expect Geno Smith to be number 6 in the QB fantasy rankings. I know darn well he was not drafted in most single QB's leagues, and he was probably one of the last ones off the board in most Superflex leagues. So he really well shocked me on being up there. I don't know if I expect him to be back into the top 10 next year. I expect that Seattle may go out and find somebody to compete with him for that backfield, but it wouldn't be a surprise for me to actually see him be up there in the top 15 next year. So I'm going to go a little different. I know you brought up somebody you don't expect to be in there. A guy that I expect to crawl back into the top 15, and that's Russell Wilson. I expect Russell Wilson to find his way back on track. He finished 17th this year through week 17. He only played 14 games. I expect Russell to get himself back on track with that Denver offense. I expect a new head coach. I expect Russell to get back into it. My original pick was Kyler Murray, but right across my phone right before we started this, just got an update that he is probably not going to start the 2023 season at quarterback for the Arizona Cardinals.
There you have it.
Yeah. So let's jump into the running backs. Running backs are always a fun one to cover. Josh Jacobs finished as number one. Once again, this is PPR. Josh Jacobs, Austin Eckler, Christian McCaffrey, Derrick Henry, Nick Chubb, Saquon Barkley, Tony Pollard, Dalvin Cook, Jamal Williams, Miles Sanders, Aaron Jones, Ramondre Stevenson, Najee Harris, Joe Mixon, and Ezekiel Elliott all were your top 15 running backs.
Yeah, so the one that surprises me the most to be here is honestly Miles Sanders. This guy's been almost a career disappointment his entire time in the league. Everybody had huge expectations of him coming out. He emerged from the shadows of Saquon Barkley and his massive thighs in Penn State, and had a really great year his senior year there in Penn State. Got drafted, and I know there was a lot of high expectations for him in the pros, and I think this is really the first year where we've seen him really start to look good. So Miles Sanders is my guy that really shocked me. As far as a guy that I expect to be there for sure next year, honestly, I'm going with A.J. Dillon. A.J. Dillon finished as a running back 24, and a lot of that had to do with how slow he started the season. I think since week 12 is about where I'm thinking is when he really emerged and was like a top 10 running back almost every week because he was finding the end zone. So I think A.J. Dillon's a guy that I expect to be in the top 15 next year. I think Aaron Jones is going to take a little bit of a back seat to A.J. Dillon. I really expect A.J. Dillon to be the focal point of that Green Bay backfield next year.
Oh, yeah. The one that shocked me the most, Jamal Williams. Who expected him to be handling all the goal line work and punching in all the touchdowns and stealing all the work? I know Swift was banged up, but who expected Jamal Williams to have that big of a role going into this year with the huge hype on DeAndre Swift? So Jamal Williams really scares me. I don't expect a top 15 performance out of him next year. He is a free agent, so that will be something to look out for. I do expect him to come back to Detroit. He had a very good role there. He's a great leader there in that locker room. But I don't know how I feel about him finishing top 15 next year. And now a guy that I feel like that could easily creep into the top 15. I'm taking the easy way out on this one. And that's Kenneth Walker III there in Seattle. They finally, last week, they went back to the run-first offense. They fed him the ball. I think he had 10-plus touches in the first half, if not more. They really leaned on him. So I expect Kenneth Walker to be the focal point, plus with Homer and Penny both out the door. They are both guys, that took away some work. So I expect Kenneth Walker to get back into the top 15 next year. Wouldn't surprise me to see him as a top 10 running back. Now let's jump into to wide receivers. Your obvious ones are all up top: Justin Jefferson, Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill, A.J. Brown, Stephon Diggs, CeeDee Lamb, Jalen Waddle, Amari Cooper, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Devonta Smith, Mike Evans, due to his huge game this past week, T. Higgins, Brandon Ayuk, Christian Kirk, and Tyler Lockett are your top 15. What do you see there?
So the first one that I want to say is surprising is Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf both being in there. But I think a big part of that was because I don't think anybody, again, like you had alluded to, expected Geno Smith to do what Geno Smith did this year. I do want to go ahead and pat myself on the back. If we go all the way back to one of our first episodes we put out for the Fantasy Holics, where we did our hot takes for the upcoming season, and yours truly's hottest take was that Cooper Kupp wouldn't finish as a wide receiver one. I'm going to take it even if it came up through the way of injury. But Cooper Kupp is 100% the guy I expect to crawl back in there next year. Obviously he was on pace to be top two this year prior to his injury, and I think he'll be back just fine next season. So Tyler Lockett, again, DK Metcalf are the two that surprised me for being there, and I think Cooper Kupp gets back next season.
Okay. My biggest one was it's the same as you. Mine's Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle to both finish in the top 10. I expected those two to finish top 24. Wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2. I did not expect them to both be top 10 this year, but Tua got it done, got them both in the top 10. And as for a guy that I expect to be in there next year, that is going to be. I expect DJ Moore to get in there next year. I know, down there in Carolina, he's had his ups and downs. We've seen him be outstanding as a wide receiver. I expect Carolina to address that situation in the draft of quarterback and or in free agency, and I expect DJ Moore to have a big share of the targets there.
Absolutely. It's also worth noting that Philly had two top 10 wide receivers as well, in A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith.
Yep. So I'm just going to run through the top 10 tight ends instead of 15 here. Let me make sure. Yep, PPR. I got Travis Kelce, T.J. Hawkinson, Mark Andrews, George Kittle, Evan Ingram, Pat Freiermuth, Tyler Higbee, Taysom Hill, Dalton Schultz, and Jawan Johnson as your number 10 tight end this year.
Yeah, if I'm going with somebody who surprised the crap out of me this year, it's Evan Ingram. This has been a guy that everybody's been waiting for this to happen all year, or all of his career for, and it finally happened this year. And if I go with somebody who I think is going to fall out of it next year, it's going to be Evan Ingram because he's on a one-year deal. If he doesn't re-sign with Jacksonville, I'm not sure we see this happen again. But as far as a guy that I expect to get into the top 10 this year or next year, there's a couple of names that are really intriguing, whether it be Njoku or Goddard, guys who finished just outside. But I'm going to go with Cole Kmet. This is a guy that I know, Brant, you and I had a lot of high hopes for coming into this year. He definitely had his moments of greatness, and he had his moments of terribleness, like starting the first 2 weeks with goose eggs. But I think Cole Kmet is the type of guy, and the chemistry he's established with Justin Fields, he's going to be a top 10 tight end for many years to come after this year.
Yeah, absolutely. So the one that surprised me is Taysom Hill. I expect a new coaching regime. I did not expect them to use him as much, but guess what they did? They moved him in the Wildcat. They let him throw the ball. They let him run the ball. They let him catch the ball. He screwed a lot of fantasy owners that own Kamara over this year. So Taysom Hill is my big surprise. As for a guy that I think is going to get back into the top 10, and I do say back in, is a guy that missed some time, and that's Zach Ertz. I know he missed. He'll miss 7 games total by the end of this season. I expect Zach Ertz to get back on track next year and finish as a top 10 tight end. He was having an amazing season there in Arizona, and once he gets back on the field, I know they have a young guy there, but I expect Ertz to get back on the field and put up some good numbers.
Absolutely.
So next for us, we're going to jump into about. I think we both have 4 guys that we are really looking forward to next year to see what happens with them, whether they be free agents coming up or guys to back up some free agent coming up. But I think we're going to knock out a few guys here to go get fairly cheap in your fantasy leagues this year because maybe they didn't do so well or maybe they weren't very much involved this year. I'm going to kick it straight off, and I'm going to go with Khalil Herbert. He's 24 years old. He's the Chicago Bears running back. David Montgomery is a free agent this year. I don't expect Chicago to pay Montgomery probably what in my mind I think he deserves. He's done a great job there. And when Khalil Herbert was healthy, the man was averaging top 10 numbers per carry. He top 10 in broken tackles. Khalil Herbert put up very serviceable numbers as a starter, and I expect Khalil Herbert to really thrive in that offense with Justin Fields and that read option.
Yeah, I do think Khalil Herbert's going to have a big role next year. I don't expect David Montgomery to be back either. And Travis Ebner really didn't do a whole lot with his opportunity, who will be the only other back under contract going into the offseason there. So I think if you can get Khalil Herbert in a dynasty league for the right price, it's definitely an investment worth holding on to. The first one I want to bring up is Rashad Penny. From your Seattle Seahawks, Brant. He's age 26. He's in his contract year. Will more than less likely be a free agent and go someplace else. I don't expect Seattle to bring him back when they still have DJ Dallas and Travis Homer, and they have Walker, who really emerged this year as well, really flourished as a rookie. So I think Rashad Penny goes someplace. I think he's going to go someplace on a one-to-prove-it deal. Again, this is a guy that if the Seahawks owner in your league doesn't own him, like he's owned in one of my leagues, this is a guy you can probably target and go out and get relatively cheap, maybe even on waivers in your league, and just hold him and see where he goes. Because just like at the tail end of last season when he was almost a league winner last year for a lot of folks, if he gets the opportunity to do that for a full season and can stay healthy, he could be a guy that really helps get you to where you want to be in a dynasty league, especially for the price you're going to pay for him.
Yeah, absolutely. He showed his explosion or his explosiveness at the beginning of the year and at the end of last year. And I don't expect to bring him back. Homer is a free agent, and that's who I expect Seattle to actually bring back. He's better pass blocker back than Penny, so I expect them to bring Homer back, not Penny. My next guy is one of my favorite guys that I've talked about last offseason. I expected him to have a bigger role, and that's Kenneth Gainwell. At 23 years old, he's going to be the number one guy there in the backfield for Philadelphia Eagles, and we saw their high-powered offense. It's still a run-first offense. I know Jalen Hurts is going to take away some of that, but Miles Sanders is a free agent, and I don't know if they're going to pay him to come back. So I expect Kenneth Gainwell to be that guy there in Philly next year, and I expect him to take a very big leap forward. RB2 range, maybe top flex range. But I expect him to be a guy that you can go out and get him fairly cheap in trades for probably third-round draft picks. So he's a guy that I look forward to adding in most of my dynasty leagues.
Sure. The next one I've got is another running back here, and this is Zamir White. And this one's going to be a little bit more expensive probably to go out and acquire because he is a rookie. But Josh Jacobs is also a free agent. We saw what Josh Jacobs can do in that offense this year. Zamir White could step into that exact role next year if Josh Jacobs doesn't come back. And there's not a coaching change in the offseason. So Zamir White to me would be worth probably an early second-round pick, maybe a mid-second-round pick and a wide receiver or something in that range. But this is a guy that I would 100% be willing to go out and acquire and be willing to hold and see what happens. Because, again, the current running back one in PPR formats is leaving that team this year, and it's going to leave a huge role to be filled. And if you can get White for the right price, it's definitely another one that's worthwhile.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a guy that I was targeting in a lot of our drafts. I ended up having to miss out on him in every single one of our dynasties, but he was definitely a guy that I was targeting for that reason. A guy that I'm targeting this offseason and I'm going to be going after hard is Alexander Mattison. He's 24 years old. He had RB1 numbers when Dalvin Cook missed time, and we know Cook missed a lot of time. Well, Madison's a free agent, and I expect there to be some teams that are willing to throw some money at him. Miami's backfield is actually both free agents in Mostert and Jeff Wilson. Atlanta is still trying to figure out their backfield, but I think you guys may have figured that out, so I don't know if you guys are going to go out and spend big money. But there's
Tyler Algier, baby. First Atlanta running back since 2016 over the 1,000-yard mark. It's figured out.
There you go. But yeah, so I think Madison will get some money. Houston Texans would be another great landing spot for him, and I expect to be some teams in the market for Alexander Mattison this offseason.
Absolutely. I love Alexander Mattison. He is definitely the type of guy that would definitely be worth going out and trying to acquire to see what happens with him. Another one that I'm interested in is not necessarily a guy that you're going to wonder where he plays next year, but I absolutely see the writing on the wall for what his role is. That's Calvin Ridley of the Jacksonville Jaguars. He was acquired by them in a trade with the Atlanta Falcons this year. In 3 of Ridley's 4 years in the league, not counting his suspension year, he finished as wide receiver 27 or better, his best finish being number 5 in a PPR league. He's only 28 years of age, so there's still plenty left in the tank. And I genuinely think that him and Trevor Lawrence's chemistry is going to be instant. Calvin Ridley's route tree and the way he runs his routes is so smooth and so polished that it'd be hard for him not to be a quarterback's best friend. So again, if this is a guy that your waivers haven't closed for this year in your league, or maybe your waivers don't close and he's available in your dynasty league, this is absolutely a guy I'm going to pick up and I'm going to hold until the start of next season to see what I have with him.
So we're talking about wide receivers. Ridley is a guy that definitely I'd go out and target. I expect big things from him and that Jacksonville offense. They're going to be one of the more exciting teams, I think, next year. I think they're going to take a Philly-sized jump in their offense of putting up points. So they're going to be extremely fun to watch next year. As for wide receivers, my guy, he's 26 years old, and that's Jacoby Myers. He was an undrafted free agent coming out a few years ago. He was picked up pretty much off the streets like old Bill Belichick always does, and he has emerged as the wide receiver one there in New England. Well, he's a free agent this year, and if he happens to go to a team that's a pass-first team, that's not a Bill Belichick scheme team to run as many running backs into the ground as he can, I expect Jacoby Myers to have a very, very good year. I don't expect him to go to a team and be a number one, but this is a guy that over the last 2-3 years has seen the number one coverage. So anywhere he goes and he slides into that number two role, he's going to be seeing the number two coverage, and that could be huge for his fantasy upside, especially if you get into a pass-first offense. For him to be that number two guy, I expect big things out of Jacoby Myers next year.
Absolutely. Jacoby's another one. I know you've been a huge fan of his since he entered the league, so definitely be interested to see what happens with him. My last guy is not necessarily somebody that I've ever been excited about in his career or ever heard anybody else be excited for this guy necessarily, but he may be the very big beneficiary of a lot of unfortunate events in New Orleans. That's Eno Benjamin, and currently he's the only running back on the Saints roster who's under contract and through next season, or going into next season, that's not named Alvin Kamara. And we all know Alvin Kamara, that there's a likelihood that he's going to have some kind of a suspension from his fight at a nightclub after the Pro Bowl last season. So this is definitely something to keep your eye on. Especially given the New Orleans Saints cap space, it's one of the worst in the league. There's not going to be a whole lot of flexibility for them to go after a veteran. So unless they draft some kind of a rookie running back or get somebody on like a league minimum, Eno Benjamin could be the type of running back that you could pick up and use for the first 6, 7, 8 weeks, whatever Kamara's suspension is, and then potentially maybe even trade to a Kamara owner as insurance or something like that. But this is a guy that I would imagine in most leagues he's out and available on the waivers right now in Dynasty, and he's definitely worth a pickup if he's available in your league.
Yeah, absolutely. He's a big guy that definitely could make a huge impact in that offense next year if Kamara does miss any time. I know a lot of people have forgot all about that suspension. Well, it's still lingering there, and you can definitely go out and take advantage of that possibly. So those are just a few guys to look at. We wanted to make sure that we start out talking about some Dynasty. I know over this offseason we're going to break down some college players. We're going to dig in deep, talk about some college players coming up and everything else. So be on the lookout for those episodes. We're going to try to pump one out every single week.
And even more so than that, Brand, if there's a dynasty player, obviously we're going to do the big ones. We're going to hit the Bijan Robinsons, the Jahmyr Gibbs, Jackson Smith and Jigba, those guys. But if there is another guy that you're interested in hearing about that you don't hear us cover and you want us to break him down on an episode, send a message to the Fantasy Holics. Tell them, hey, I want to hear the Fatboyz break down player X. And we will get that, do our research, do our due diligence, and put out that player on our episode. So definitely be doing that if that's something you're interested in.
Yeah, absolutely. And guys, don't hesitate to reach out to us or anything else to talk about dynasty trades, or do we think they're fair offers, anything else. We love to put our input in that. We stay busy throughout the off season. We're in 2 different dynasty leagues. I'm actually in a 5-man keeper league. So that's always big there with me. But as always, stay hungry
and stay fat, my friends.